You know that feeling, right? That knot that ties itself in your stomach when you're waiting for an important email to land, or when the minutes stretch into what feels like hours while you're waiting for a medical test result? Yeah, that feeling, that's uncertainty. And for our brains, it can be absolutely unbelievably agonizing.
But why? Why does just not knowing something cause us so much stress? Okay, so let's get into it. We're basically going to be detectives here, following the clues from our ancient, primal instincts all the way to the complex wiring of our modern brains to figure out exactly why not knowing feels so dang bad.
And our very first clue? Well, it's all about untangling two emotions that we tend to mash together all the time, but that our brains treat as totally different things: fear and anxiety.
Now, this distinction, this is so important. Fear is how you respond to a clear and present danger. Think about a bear charging at you in the woods. The threat is real, it's definite, and it's happening right now. Anxiety, though, that's a response to a potential threat. It's that feeling you get walking through those same woods, but at night just wondering if there's a bear out there somewhere.
And that, right there, is the heart of it. Uncertainty is where anxiety lives and breathes. It's a secret ingredient that turns a concrete reaction into that lingering, vague sense of dread. So that feeling we all hate, yeah, it has a name, and that name is anxiety.
So why are we so wired for this feeling? Well, for our next clue, we've got to jump in the time machine and rewind the clock. I mean, way, way back. We're going looking for a kind of ghost in our own genetic code. For our ancient ancestors, night was no joke, terrifying. I mean, with our terrible night vision, they were incredibly vulnerable to predators who were perfectly built for hunting in the dark. So the humans who were a little jumpy, a little on edge after the sun went down, well, they were the ones who stayed alert, stayed safe, and lived long enough to pass on their genes. Our modern anxiety is really just an echo of their life-saving alertness.
And this really gets to the core of it, doesn't it? Our minds are basically designed to fill in the blanks. And let's be honest, they usually don't fill them in with puppies and rainbows. Whether we're talking about an ancient lion lurking in the savannah or a modern worry about a big deadline, our imagination kind of defaults to the worst-case scenario. It's a feature, not a bug, even if it doesn't always feel that way. So if this response is so hardwired into us, what happens if the part of the brain that's responsible for it is just gone? Let's look at our next piece of evidence. The absolutely mind-blowing case of a woman known only as patient SM. But first, a super quick introduction to a key player in our story, the amygdala. I want you to think of these two little almond-shaped bits deep inside your brain as your main fear switches. When they spot a threat, boom, they kick off that whole fight-or-flight response. Okay, so now, meet patient SM. Because of a really rare genetic condition, both of her amygdala are completely destroyed. And this gives scientists an incredible, unprecedented window into what a brain and a life looks like completely without fear. So researchers put SM in situations that should have terrified her. They took her to a haunted house, and she was so fearless, she ended up leading the group and actually startled one of the actors by poking them because she was curious. At a pet store, she was handling snakes and spiders with genuine interest, even though she claimed she didn't like them. Her life is just full of traumatic events. She's been held at knife point, at gunpoint, but she says she feels anger, not fear, and she keeps putting herself in dangerous situations because her brain can't learn to avoid them.
The case of SM is just profound. It shows us crystal clear that without a working amygdala, the entire fear sequence just fails. It never even gets off the ground. The brain can't trigger the state of fear. And without that state, the feeling of fear never ever shows up.
Okay, but SM is obviously a very extreme case. Her story shows us what life is like when that fear switch is permanently off. For the rest of us, that switch works perfectly fine, but it seems like the sensitivity is different for everyone. So why do some of us just despise uncertainty so much more than others? Well, this brings us to a really crucial idea, a sort of personal thermostat for how we handle the unknown. Psychologists have a term for this trait, intolerance of uncertainty, or just IU. It's basically the tendency to find the very state of uncertainty itself to be stressful and threatening. So for someone with high IU, the mere possibility of something bad happening feels completely unacceptable, even if that possibility is super, super tiny.
And this is so key. It is not an on or off switch. We all fall somewhere on this spectrum, and where you land on this scale has a massive, massive impact on your emotional life, especially when you have no idea what's coming next.
All right, this is it. This is the climax of our whole investigation. Let's see how all of these clues, the nature of anxiety,
our evolutionary baggage, and our own personal IU setting all come together to actually shape our day-to-day feelings.
So what does the science actually tell us? How does having a high score on that IU scale literally change how we experience the world when everything's up in the air?
Okay, let's break this down because this is where it all clicks. These charts come from a 2023 study, so focus on those top charts first. See how that trend line goes up and to the right? It's pretty stark. It shows that as a person's intolerance of uncertainty score goes up, they report feeling more negative emotions. Now look at the bottom chart. That line's going down. The higher the IU score, the fewer positive emotions they feel. What this means is, for people high in IU, an uncertain situation is just way more likely to trigger bad feelings and way less likely to spark any good ones.
But here's the real kicker. This is a huge insight into how we feel. IU doesn't just create emotions out of nowhere. No, it changes the emotions you're already feeling. Look at the chart on the left. When people with high IU run into uncertainty, any negative feelings they already have get more intense. And on the right, any positive emotions they might be feeling get weaker.
So what this really means is that intolerance of uncertainty acts like an emotional amplifier for everything bad and a dimmer switch for everything good. It takes a stressful situation and makes you feel even worse, and it can take a genuinely happy moment and just suck the joy right out of it, all because of the presence of the unknown.
So understanding the problem is one thing, but what can we actually do about it? How do we learn to live more comfortably with the one thing in life that's, well, pretty much guaranteed, uncertainty itself?
Well, researchers have found that a high intolerance for uncertainty isn't just a personality quirk, it's what they call transdiagnostic. And that's a fancy way of saying it's a single root cause that contributes to a whole bunch of different conditions, from anxiety and depression to things like OCD. And that makes learning to tolerate uncertainty a really powerful goal in therapy.
But there are also things we can all do in our daily lives. Mindfulness, for example, helps pull our brains out of that trap of imagining negative futures and brings us back to what's happening right now. Deep breathing can physically calm down that whole fight or flight response. Simple exercise, just getting up and moving, is a proven anxiety reducer. And techniques like progressive muscle relaxation can help release the physical tension that uncertainty builds up in our bodies. Look, these aren't magic cures, but they are real tools to help us sit with that discomfort a little more easily.
So in the end, we're left with this question. This anxiety we feel when we're facing the unknown. It's an ancient tool. It was designed to keep us alive. But in our modern world, how do we honor that ancient survival instinct without letting it completely rob us of our ability to feel joy, excitement, and hope, all of which, by the way, also require a little leap into the unknown?